You did this. While you were in labor, you were destroying me?
No, I was stopping you from destroying me. I protected our daughter.
She opened the envelope while carrying his child and discovered the man she built an empire with had been planning to destroy her all along. Rebecca Harrington held the manila envelope with trembling hands, rainwater dripping onto the hardwood floors of their $12 million Seattle mansion. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you ignored every warning sign? Ever sacrificed everything for a partnership you thought was forever? Inside were photographs that would shatter the life she'd spent 12 years building. What she found wasn't just proof of betrayal. It was a blueprint for her complete destruction. The question is, what would you do with 72 hours to save yourself? Stay with me through this journey because what happens next will change how you think about trust, revenge, and the power of a woman who refuses to be erased. Rain hammered the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, each drop a metronome counting down her remaining time. The nursery she'd been painting that morning, soft yellow walls, hand-stenciled clouds, now felt like a tomb for dreams that died before birth. 8 months pregnant and exhausted, Rebecca had spent the afternoon choosing between 2 shades of white for the baby's dresser. The envelope arrived by courier at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that started ordinary and ended in ruins. The first photograph showed Derek with a woman Rebecca recognized, his assistant, Michelle. They weren't at a business dinner. They were tangled together on a hotel bed, his hands in places that belonged to his wife. The second photo showed Derek with someone else entirely, a woman in an expensive suit, kissing him outside a downtown high-rise. Rebecca's hands shook harder, but the photographs weren't the worst part. Bank statements showed money disappearing from their accounts, the ones she helped build when Derek was nobody. Hundreds of thousands transferred to places she'd never heard of. Property deeds in Michelle's name. A condo Rebecca had never seen. An investment account she didn't know existed. At the bottom of the pile, a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Rebecca, he's planning to divorce you the day after the baby is born. He thinks you won't fight back while pregnant. You have 72 hours before his lawyers serve you papers. He's been planning this for months. What will you do? Victoria, Derek's former business partner, the one he'd pushed out 3 years ago. Rebecca barely remembered her. 3 weeks ago, Derek had come home late. She'd tried to reconnect, reaching for him in their bed the way she used to. He'd pulled away, phone buzzing on the nightstand. Big investor call tomorrow, he'd said, turning his back to her. Need to sleep. She'd lain awake, his child moving inside her, wondering when her husband stopped seeing her as a partner and started treating her like furniture. Now she knew. He'd been planning her exit while she planned their baby's nursery. If someone handed you proof that your entire life was a lie, would you confront them immediately? Or would you plan your next move in silence? Drop A, if you've ever felt this level of betrayal. She placed both hands on her swollen belly, feeling their daughter kick against her palms. Derek thought he had 72 hours. He was wrong. Rebecca had already started counting down. Not to her destruction, but to his. The woman who warned her wasn't a friend. She was the ghost of Derek's first betrayal, back to witness his second. Rebecca's call to Victoria Martinez went straight to voicemail. She tried again, and again. On the 4th attempt, a woman's voice answered, sharp and knowing. Took you long enough. Who are you? Rebecca's voice cracked. Why did you send me this? We need to meet. Downtown. Pike Street Coffee. 1 hour. The line went dead. Rebecca stood in her kitchen, rain still drumming against the windows, and realized that she was about to trust a stranger more than her own husband. What choice did she have? They met in a downtown coffee shop where steam rose from cups like smoke signals. Victoria Martinez sat in the back corner, laptop open, watching the door. When Rebecca walked in, pregnant, scared, angry, Victoria's expression shifted from calculation to something almost gentle. "Sit," Victoria said, sliding a second folder across the scarred wood table, thicker than the first. "Before you ask, yes, I know what you're going through. I was there 3 years ago. Derek pushed you out of the company. Derek stole from me." Victoria's voice held no emotion, just fact. "I created the core software that made his company worth billions. He seduced me with vision, made me believe we were building together. Then he filed paperwork removing my name, stole my code, and forced me out with threats of legal action I couldn't afford to fight." Rebecca felt sick. He does this? This is a pattern? Victoria opened her laptop, turning the screen toward Rebecca. Files, spreadsheets, photographs, text messages, bank transfers. 3 years of documentation. "He destroys women who build things," Victoria said quietly. "Then he finds new ones to extract from. You weren't his first victim. You're just his most convenient. But you're pregnant, which makes you vulnerable. He's been planning this for months, transferring assets, creating false trails, positioning Michelle as his new partner, the woman he's setting up to replace you. How long have you been watching him?" "Since the day he betrayed me. I knew he'd do it again. Men like Derek don't change. They just find new targets." Victoria leaned forward. "Tell me, Rebecca, when did he stop looking at you like a partner and start treating you like property?" Rebecca's mind flashed through a dozen moments. The way Derek stopped asking her opinion about business decisions. The way he'd slowly excluded her from investor meetings. The way he'd suggested she focus on the baby while he handled the company they'd built together. She thought it was consideration. It was erasure. Have you ever discovered you weren't the first person someone betrayed? That you were just following a pattern? Share below if you've seen the red flags only after it was almost too late. Victoria slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything's on here. Bank records showing fraud, proof he forged your signature on documents, evidence he's been funneling money for 18 months. If you want to fight him, you have the ammunition, but you need to move fast." "Why are you helping me?" Rebecca asked. Victoria's smile was cold. "Because watching Derek Harrington destroy himself is a dish I've been waiting 3 years to taste. And you're going to help me serve it." Victoria's final words echoed as Rebecca drove home through Seattle's rain-slicked streets. "He thinks women are interchangeable. Michelle will learn what you're learning now. But first, let's teach him what happens when underestimated women stop playing nice." She had 3 days to save herself, but revenge takes longer than survival. So she decided to do both simultaneously. Rebecca didn't sleep that night, while Derek snored beside her, satisfied, oblivious, already planning her departure. She researched Washington's state divorce laws on her phone under the blankets. Community property state. She had rights to half of everything, regardless of whose name was on the paperwork. Unless he'd successfully hidden the assets first. At 3 a.m., she crept to her home office. The space she designed for managing their household bills, planning charity events, handling the administrative work Derek found boring. The room nobody paid attention to. Her home office, once a peaceful space for managing their household, transformed into a war room. Laptop screens glowed in the darkness, spreadsheets revealing the financial architecture of her own dismantling. She started with Victoria's flash drive. The documentation was devastating. Derek had been transferring money for 18 months, small amounts at first, then larger chunks as his confidence grew. Property purchases in Michelle's name. Investment accounts Rebecca had never authorized. Joint business ventures with Stephanie Cole, a venture capitalist whose $50 million investment had funded Derek's latest expansion. Rebecca pulled up their company's original incorporation documents. There, buried in the paperwork from 12 years ago, Rebecca Harrington, Chief Financial Officer. She'd forgotten. Derek had convinced her to step back when she got pregnant, told her it was temporary, assured her they were still partners. Legal leverage. She texted an old college friend, Jennifer Chen, now a divorce attorney in Seattle. Emergency. Need to talk. Can you call me at 6 a.m.? Jennifer called at 5:47 a.m. Rebecca, what's wrong? Rebecca told her everything. The envelope, the evidence, the 72-hour warning. Jennifer listened in silence, then said words that changed everything. He's going to try to serve you when you're most vulnerable, right after the baby's born. But if we file first, preemptively, we control the narrative. How fast can you move? As fast as I need to. Send me everything. I'll start filing today. Emergency custody provisions, asset freeze, fraud investigation. If he wants war, we'll give him war he's not prepared for. Derek arrived home at 8 p.m., late as always. The scent of expensive perfume clung to his shirt, not Rebecca's fragrance. He kissed her forehead, played the concerned husband. How are you feeling? How's our girl? Our girl. Their daughter. The child he was planning to use as a weapon. Derek tried to initiate intimacy that night, his guilt manifesting as sudden attention, touching her pregnant body with hands that had been on other women hours before. She let him, her mind calculating with every false endearment, every practiced move. Every lie he tells me now becomes evidence. Every false promise becomes ammunition. Would you warn your replacement that she's next, or would you let her learn the hard way? Tell me what you would do in the comments. As Derek slept beside her that night, his phone buzzed with a message from Michelle. Baby, can't wait until she's gone, and we can finally be together. Rebecca screenshot it, sent it to Jennifer, then did something that would terrify him if he knew. She smiled. Michelle thought she was the chosen one, the woman who'd finally tamed Derek Harrington. She had no idea she was simply Rebecca 2.0. Rebecca followed Michelle on Thursday morning. Not physically. She was 8 months pregnant and couldn't exactly hide. But digitally, tracking was easy when you knew someone's patterns. Michelle's social media told the story Derek's mistress wanted the world to see. A young woman, 26 and ambitious, posting carefully curated shots of downtown Seattle, breakfast at expensive cafes, designer shopping bags, the lifestyle of someone who thought they'd moved up in the world. Rebecca dug deeper. Michelle worked as Derek's executive assistant, hired 9 months ago, just after Rebecca's pregnancy became visible. The timing wasn't coincidence. Using Victoria's connections, Rebecca found Michelle's address, a downtown condo in a new development, expensive, modern, the kind of place a young professional couldn't afford on an assistant's salary. The downtown condo gleamed with new furniture Michelle had clearly chosen, modern, sleek, nothing like Rebecca's elegant traditional taste. Every piece screamed replacement, upgrade, improvement. Michelle didn't know she wasn't moving up. She was just moving into position. Rebecca parked across the street at 6 p.m. and waited. At 6:47, Derek's car pulled up. He got out, looked around, checking for witnesses, then went inside. Through the second-floor windows, Rebecca watched shadows move. Derek and Michelle, backlit against expensive curtains. His hands on her body, pulling her close. The same practiced movements Rebecca remembered from their early days. Efficient, calculated, rehearsed. She thought his passion for her was unique, special. The way he touched her, the things he whispered, the morning routines they developed, she'd believed those moments were theirs alone. Watching him kiss Michelle goodbye outside the building 40 minutes later, Rebecca realized with cold clarity His passion was never unique. It was rehearsed, a script he performed with whoever was convenient. Have you ever realized you weren't special to someone, just convenient? That the love you thought was unique was actually just their default setting? Drop your story below. Back home, Rebecca opened her laptop. Michelle's work email wasn't hard to find. It was on the company website. Rebecca created a burner email account, attached 3 photographs Victoria had provided. Derek with Stephanie, the venture capitalist. Derek with another woman Rebecca didn't recognize. Timestamps showing they were recent. No message. No explanation. Just evidence that Michelle wasn't the only other woman. She hit send. Let them destroy each other before the main event. Rebecca sent an anonymous email to Michelle's work account. Just the photos of Derek with Stephanie, the venture capitalist. No message. No explanation. Just evidence that Michelle wasn't the only other woman. Let them destroy each other before the main event. The venture capitalist who funded Derek's expansion didn't know the real return he promised her wasn't financial. It was emotional, and the interest rate was a lie. Stephanie Cole was harder to track than Michelle. Successful people knew how to hide, but Victoria had been thorough. Her files included everything about the woman who'd given Derek $50 million and apparently gotten more than investment returns. Stephanie, 38, managing partner at one of Seattle's most prominent venture capital firms. Smart, powerful, the kind of woman who didn't get played, except she had been. Victoria's documentation showed the timeline. Stephanie's firm had been considering Derek's expansion proposal for months. The investment committee was split. Then Derek started taking personal meetings with Stephanie, dinners, conferences, a weekend trip to San Francisco that had nothing to do with business. 3 weeks after their business trip, Stephanie's firm approved the full $50 million investment. Stephanie's corner office overlooked downtown Seattle, glass and steel reaching toward clouds. Power radiated from every surface, except Stephanie didn't know her power was already compromised by believing Derek Harrington's promises. Rebecca found hotel receipts in the financial records Victoria had given her. The Olympic Hotel, the one Derek claimed was for client meetings. 7 nights in the past 4 months. Always a suite. Always charged to their business account, the account Rebecca technically still had CFO access to. Even if Derek thought she'd stopped paying attention, she pulled the detailed records, room service for 2, champagne. The pattern was identical to his nights with Michelle, just more expensive. Compartmentalized passion, scheduled intimacy, nothing real, everything transactional. Derek probably told Stephanie the same things he told Rebecca once upon a time, that she understood his vision, that she matched his ambition, that together they could build something extraordinary. The same script, different staging, different audience, same performance. Rebecca realized something crucial studying those receipts. Derek's betrayals weren't separate incidents. They were interconnected. He seduced women who had resources he needed. He'd used Rebecca's early business work to launch the company. He'd stolen Victoria's code to scale it. He'd charmed Stephanie into funding expansion. He was probably using Michelle for something too, maybe just credibility with younger demographics, maybe access to administrative systems. He built empires on women's backs and convinced them they should be grateful to carry his weight. How many versions of yourself can someone love before you realize they don't actually love anyone? Share your thoughts below. Rebecca scheduled a meeting with Stephanie, not as Derek's wife, but as the company's original CFO requesting to discuss financial discrepancies in the expansion funding. She used her old company email, the one that still technically worked because Derek never bothered to shut it down. Stephanie's assistant confirmed the meeting for Monday morning. Stephanie had no idea the meeting would expose more than money problems. Rebecca scheduled a meeting with Stephanie, not as Derek's wife, but as the company's original CFO with questions about financial discrepancies in the expansion funding. Stephanie had no idea the meeting would expose more than money problems. She could have screamed, cried, thrown his belongings off their penthouse balcony. Instead, she played the role of devoted wife while building his downfall brick by silent brick. Friday night, Derek came home with flowers, roses, red ones, expensive, from the shop on Fifth Avenue that charged double because they could. He'd also picked up dinner from her favorite restaurant, the Italian place they'd gone to on their first anniversary, back when they were poor and splitting one entree was romantic instead of necessary. Thought we could have a nice evening, he said, kissing her cheek. Just us. Before everything changes. Everything was already changing. He just didn't know it yet. Candlelight flickered between them at their dining room table, shadows dancing across his face like warnings of the darkness she was about to release. He raised his wine glass. She couldn't drink, pregnant, and toasted their future. She smiled and touched her water glass to his. He thought they were celebrating. She was mourning. I've been thinking about names, Derek said, twirling pasta on his fork. What about Emily? Or maybe Grace? Emma Grace, Rebecca said. That's what I want to call her. His face lit up. Genuine happiness. For a moment, she saw the man she'd fallen in love with 13 years ago, the struggling entrepreneur with big dreams and empty pockets. The guy who'd kiss her hands after she stayed up all night helping him prepare investor pitches. That man was gone. Maybe he'd never existed at all. Derek talked about the nursery, about his plans to take paternity leave. 2 whole weeks, he said proudly, as if that was generous. About how their daughter would have everything they never did growing up. Private schools, travel, opportunities. He didn't mention that he was planning to take it all away from Rebecca the moment their daughter was born. I love you, he said, reaching across the table to take her hand. I know I've been distant lately. Work stress, the expansion, but that's all going to change. Once she's here, I'm going to be more present. I promise. Every word was a lie wrapped in sincerity. Later, Derek initiated intimacy, his guilt manifesting as passion, hands moving over her pregnant body with sudden tenderness. He undressed her slowly, whispered words of love against her skin, treated her like she was precious. She let him, responded with practiced enthusiasm, made the right sounds, touched him back the way he liked, made him believe everything was perfect. But in her mind, she was counting. This is the last time you touch me, the last time you'll lie to me, the last time you think you've won. He fell asleep satisfied, arm draped over her belly, their daughter moving between them. Rebecca's phone lit up with a text from Jennifer, her lawyer. Everything's filed, emergency custody provisions ready. When he tries to serve you, we serve him first. Just say when. She typed back 2 words. Tomorrow morning. Have you ever had to pretend everything was fine while your world was burning? How did you maintain the mask? Share your story of strength below. As Derek slept satisfied beside her, Rebecca received a text from her lawyer. Everything's filed, emergency custody provisions ready. When he tries to serve you, we serve him first. Just say when. She replied with 2 words. Tomorrow morning. She went into labor the same day she destroyed his empire, because strong women don't postpone their power for anyone's convenience. The contraction started at 6 a.m., sharp, regular. Rebecca had been awake for hours anyway, watching the ceiling, waiting for Jennifer's next message confirming everything was ready. Her water broke at 6:23 a.m. Derek woke to her sharp inhale. Becca, you okay? It's time, she said. The baby's coming. He went into panic mode, rushing, grabbing the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, calling the doctor, helping her to the car with hands that shook from adrenaline and excitement. He had no idea what else was coming. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and impending change. Monitors beeped rhythmically as contractions tightened around her middle, each one a countdown not just to birth, but to Derek's reckoning. Between waves of pain, she watched him hold her hand and wondered if he was capable of real love, or if even this moment was performance. "You're doing great," he kept saying. "So strong, so beautiful." At 9:15 a.m., Jennifer walked into the hospital room. Derek didn't recognize her. Why would he? He'd never bothered to learn about Rebecca's college friends. "Rebecca, I brought the paperwork we discussed," Jennifer said, professional and calm. Derek frowned. "What paperwork? Can this wait?" "She's in labor. It can't wait," Rebecca said through gritted teeth as another contraction hit. "Derek, go handle the admission paperwork. They need insurance information." He hesitated, looking between Rebecca and Jennifer. "Go," Rebecca said. "Please, I need you to take care of that." The moment Derek left, Rebecca signed document after document. Emergency custody provisions, asset freeze orders, fraud investigation authorization. Each signature was another wall being built around her daughter's future. "How long do I have?" Rebecca asked. 2 hours before everything hits his accounts, Jennifer said. 3 before his lawyers get served. Can you hold out that long? Rebecca felt another contraction building. "I'll hold out as long as it takes." The doctor came in to check her progress. "You're at 6 centimeters. We've got a few hours yet." When Derek stepped out for the examination, Rebecca whispered to the doctor, "I need you to slow everything down. Buy me 2 more hours." The doctor, Dr. Chen, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, looked at Rebecca's face, saw something there that transcended medicine, something fierce and protective and desperate. "Whatever you're doing," Dr. Chen said quietly, "do it fast. Would you expose someone's lies while giving birth to their child? Or would you wait until you were stronger? Tell me what you would do." The hours dragged. Contractions intensified. Derek held her hand, wiped her forehead, played the role of supportive husband. He had no idea his phone was about to explode. At 2:37 p.m., while Rebecca pushed through the final contractions, Derek's phone lit up like a fireworks display. Text after text. Call after call. He glanced at the screen, confused, then alarmed. "What the—" he started. "Push," Dr. Chen commanded. "One more big push, Rebecca." Derek's phone rang. His lawyer. He looked torn between answering and staying with Rebecca. "Answer it," Rebecca gasped between pushes. "You're going to want to hear this." But he couldn't answer. Because at 2:41 p.m., Emma Grace Harrington entered the world, screaming and perfect, and completely unaware that her father's empire was collapsing around her. At 2:37 p.m., while Rebecca pushed through final contractions, Derek's phone exploded with notifications. Bank account frozen, assets seized. Michelle and Stephanie both served with deposition subpoenas. Victoria's lawsuit refiled with new evidence. His phone rang. His lawyer, frantic. But Derek couldn't answer. His daughter was being born. And he had no idea she was entering a world where her father's empire was already ashes. She gave life to their daughter in the same hour she killed the man she thought she knew. And somehow, both felt like the right choice. Emma's first cry filled the room like an accusation. Loud, strong, alive. Derek cut the cord with trembling hands, tears streaming down his face, while Rebecca watched him meet his daughter with something close to wonder. For 60 seconds, they were just parents, just 2 people who'd created life together, just a family. Then his phone rang again, and the spell shattered. "Mr. Harrington," the nurse said, holding Emma wrapped in a pink blanket. "Would you like to hold your daughter?" Derek took Emma carefully, like she might break. He looked at her face, red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect, and something shifted in his expression. Real emotion, real connection. Rebecca watched from the hospital bed, exhausted and bleeding, and more certain than ever that she'd done the right thing. Because Emma deserved a father who was present, not a man who planned to abandon her mother the moment it was convenient. The hospital room phone rang. Derek's lawyer, calling the room directly. Derek answered, Emma still cradled in one arm. "What? That's impossible. No, I didn't. Rebecca, what? No, she's in labor. She couldn't have—" His face went pale. "What do you mean assets frozen? On what grounds?" Rebecca closed her eyes, letting the conversation wash over her. The panic in Derek's voice. The realization dawning. The moment he understood he'd been played. In the quiet moment after birth, before chaos fully erupted, Derek kissed Rebecca's forehead with genuine emotion. She felt the ghost of who they were, struggling entrepreneurs, partners, lovers. The phantom of real intimacy made his betrayal cut deeper. Can someone be a good father but a terrible husband? Can you forgive betrayal for your child's sake? Share your perspective. When Derek's lawyer finally hung up and he turned to Rebecca, his face was different. The mask had dropped. No more concerned husband, no more excited father, just a man who'd been caught. "You did this," he said. Not a question, a statement. "I protected our daughter," Rebecca replied. While you were in labor, you were destroying me?" "No, I was stopping you from destroying me." Emma started crying, sensing the tension. A nurse came in, took the baby gently from Derek's arms. "Let's give Mom and Dad a moment," she said, though her eyes showed she understood this wasn't a normal family moment. Derek's lawyer arrived 20 minutes later. Suit, briefcase, expression of barely contained panic. He pulled Derek into the hallway, voices rising and falling through the closed door. Rebecca watched through the window as Derek's face transformed from new father to cornered animal. His hands moved through his hair. He paced. He argued. He pointed back toward the room where Rebecca lay with their hours-old daughter. When he returned, Emma sleeping in his arms again, he asked the question she'd been waiting for. "How long have you known?" Derek's lawyer pulls him into the hallway. Through the window, Rebecca watches Derek's face transform from new father to cornered animal. When he returns, Emma sleeping in his arms, he asks the question she's been waiting for. "How long have you known?" The hospital room became a confession booth where lies died and truth was born, almost as painful as the labor she'd just endured. "How long?" Derek asked again, his voice hollow. 4 days, Rebecca said. "Someone sent me an envelope. Photos, bank statements, evidence of everything you've been planning." He sat down heavily in the chair beside her bed. Emma slept in the hospital bassinet between them, physical representation of the only thing still connecting them. The room smelled of new life and old death, birth and endings existing in the same breath. "Victoria," Derek said. "Not a question. Does it matter who told me? Would it change what you did?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I built the empire. You just helped at the beginning." Rebecca had been expecting this, the justification, the minimizing of her contribution, the rewriting of history to make himself the hero and her the supporting character. She pulled out her phone, showed him screenshots she'd saved for this exact moment. "Here's the pitch deck I wrote for your first major investor. Here's the financial model I built when you couldn't afford an accountant. Here's the contract I negotiated when you had stage fright so bad you threw up before the meeting." Derek's face changed as he scrolled through the evidence of his own lies. I did your finances when you couldn't afford a bookkeeper, Rebecca continued, her voice quiet but steady. I pitched investors when you had stage fright. I believed in you when no one else did. And you repaid me by treating me like I was replaceable. I'm sorry, he said. You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference. Emma stirred between them, making small noises in her sleep. Derek reached across to touch Rebecca's hand, not sexually, but with the familiarity of someone who once knew her body as well as his own. She didn't pull away, but she didn't respond. The absence of response said everything. The intimacy is dead, even if the obligation remains. What about Emma? Derek asked. You're going to keep her from me? I'm going to protect her from becoming collateral damage in your next scheme, Rebecca said. You can see her, be her father. But you don't get to use her as leverage. You don't get to threaten me with losing her. And you sure as hell don't get to teach her that this is how partnerships work. The company will survive without you. Victoria's already filed to reclaim her intellectual property. Stephanie's pulling her investment and conducting a fraud audit. Michelle's cooperating with investigators about accounting irregularities. Your board of directors is calling an emergency meeting. You've destroyed me. No. I've removed your ability to destroy anyone else. There's a difference. Is an apology worth anything if it only comes after being exposed? Can someone truly be sorry if they wouldn't have stopped without being caught? Share your truth below. Derek asked the question she knew was coming. What do you want from me? Rebecca looked at their sleeping daughter, then back at him. Everything you tried to take from me, and this time, I'm keeping the receipts. Michelle thought she'd won the prize when she got the man, until she realized the prize was actually a bankruptcy notice and a deposition subpoena. Michelle's message came through on Tuesday, 3 days after Emma was born. Brief, angry, desperate. We need to talk. You did this to me. You ruined everything. Rebecca agreed to meet at a cafe downtown. She brought Emma in a baby wrap against her chest, the weight of her daughter grounding her. The cafe buzzed with afternoon customers, while Emma slept against Rebecca's chest in her wrap. Michelle arrived in designer clothes Derek bought her, confidence radiating until she saw Rebecca's face, not angry, but pitying. You destroyed my life, Michelle said, sliding into the chair across from Rebecca. I saved it, Rebecca replied calmly. You just don't know that yet. The apartment, they're saying it's evidence of fraud, that Derek used company money for personal property and put it in my name to hide assets. I could go to jail. Only if you don't cooperate with the investigation. Michelle's hands shook. I thought, he said we were going to be together, that once you were out of the picture, we'd have everything, the company, the life, the future. Rebecca felt a wave of something complicated, not quite sympathy, not quite anger, something in between. Did he tell you about the thing he does with his tongue? Rebecca asked quietly. The way he whispers your name during the morning routine with coffee in bed? Michelle's face went pale. Yes to all. He told me those were our special things, Michelle whispered. Our intimacy. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. They're not special, they're scripted. You're performing the same role I did, the role Victoria did before me. He has a playbook, Michelle, and you're not even the only current player. She slid her phone across the table. Photos of Derek with Stephanie. Recent photos. Dated after he'd started seeing Michelle. Michelle stared at the screen, face crumbling. But he said, he promised. I know what he promised. He promised me forever too, 13 years ago. Then he spent 18 months planning my destruction while I was pregnant with his child. Would you warn the person who helped destroy your marriage? Or let them learn the hard way? Share what you would choose. What do I do? Michelle asked, and she sounded young suddenly. 26, scared, in way over her head. Rebecca pulled out a business card. Jennifer's information. When you're ready to realize he used you too, call her. The apartment in your name? It's not a gift. It's a liability he's been building to frame you for tax fraud. You think you're his future? You're actually his fall guy. Michelle's hand shook as she picked up the card. He destroys women who build things, Rebecca said, standing up carefully with Emma still sleeping against her. The question is, are you going to let him destroy you? Or are you going to help take him down? Rebecca slides a business card across the table. Her lawyer's information. When you're ready to realize he used you too, call her. The apartment in your name? It's not a gift. It's a liability he's been building to frame you for tax fraud. You think you're his future. You're actually his fall guy. Michelle's hands shake as she picks up the card. The venture capitalist, who bet $50 million on Derek's genius, was about to learn the most expensive lesson of her career. Mixing business with pleasure always costs someone their company. Victoria's downtown office became War Room Central, whiteboards covered in financial flowcharts, 3 brilliant women who'd been played by the same man now playing him better. Coffee cups multiplied as hours passed, evidence stacking higher than any of them had imagined. Stephanie Cole walked in at 2 p.m. sharp, briefcase in hand, power suit perfectly pressed. She looked every inch the successful venture capitalist, until she saw the evidence spread across Victoria's conference table. What is this? Stephanie asked, though her voice already carried the weight of knowing. Your $50 million, Rebecca said quietly. Emma slept in her carrier beside Rebecca's chair, or rather, where it actually went. Victoria pulled up a presentation on the screen. Bank transfers, property purchases, hidden accounts. The money trail showed Derek's expansion funds being diverted to personal accounts, real estate purchases, offshore holdings. He used my investment to build a personal fortune, Stephanie said, her voice flat. He seduced you to secure funding, Rebecca corrected, then used that funding to prepare for his next move. The expansion was real, but he was also building his exit strategy, an exit that involved leaving me with nothing and keeping everything. Stephanie sat down heavily. The night we closed the deal, he took me to the Olympic Hotel penthouse suite. Champagne, rose petals, the whole production. He made me feel like I was the only woman who ever understood his vision, the only one who matched his ambition. Rebecca nodded. He said the same to me in a garage apartment when we were broke. Same script, different staging. He doesn't see women as partners, Victoria said. He sees us as resources to extract. But the company wouldn't exist without my funding. It wouldn't exist without my groundwork, Rebecca interrupted. Victoria's code, or Michelle's current unpaid administrative work. He builds empires on women's backs and convinces us we should be grateful to carry his weight. Stephanie looked at the 3 women. Different ages, different backgrounds, different relationships with Derek. All betrayed the same way. So what do we do? She asked. I want my money back. I want him prosecuted. I want everything, Victoria finished. We all do. Have you ever pooled resources with other women to fight back against someone who wronged you all? Share your story of solidarity below. The 3 women looked at the evidence spread before them, enough to destroy Derek legally, financially, professionally. Rebecca asked, so what do we do? Expose everything at once, or watch him slowly fall apart? Victoria smiled dangerously. Why choose? Let's do both. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but watching a man's empire crumble in real time, that's dinner and a show. The strategy was simple. Release evidence in waves. Keep Derek constantly reacting, never recovering. Death by 1,000 cuts. each one documented and public. First wave, Monday morning. Victoria filed her lawsuit with 3 years of documentation. Did Derek's theft of her code, his fraudulent removal of her from company records, proof he'd built his billion-dollar empire on stolen intellectual property? By noon, tech blogs were covering it. By evening, major news networks had picked it up. Second wave, Tuesday. Stephanie's firm released a statement pulling all funding and initiating fraud investigation. $50 million in investor money misused. Federal investigators getting involved. The SEC taking interest. Derek's stock price dropped 40% in one day. Third wave, Wednesday. Michelle provided testimony to investigators about accounting irregularities. How Derek had her create false records. How he'd hidden purchases in her name without her knowledge. How he'd used her to commit fraud while making her think they were building a future. Fourth wave, Thursday. Rebecca's lawyer released Derek's planned divorce strategy to the press, the documents showing he'd been planning to abandon his pregnant wife, the evidence of systematic asset hiding, the proof he'd been preparing to leave Rebecca penniless while their child grew inside her. News vans lined their Seattle street like scavengers. Rebecca watched from behind curtains, Emma nursing peacefully against her chest, while Derek's world exploded on every screen. Cable news, financial networks, tech blogs, everyone covering the fall of the man who'd built his empire on lies. Derek called a press conference Friday morning. Damage control. He stood at a podium in his best suit, lawyers flanking him, and tried to spin the narrative. These are business disputes being sensationalized, he said. Former partners with grudges. Misunderstandings about financial arrangements. My personal life is being weaponized. Within an hour, Michelle released text messages, his promises to her, his lies about Rebecca, his admission that he was handling the divorce. Stephanie released emails showing Derek's romantic manipulation during investment negotiations, how he'd mixed business with personal advances, how he'd promised her special consideration. Victoria released financial records showing the exact timeline of his theft, every stolen line of code, every forged signature. Each woman he'd betrayed spoke publicly. The truth destroyed his carefully crafted lies. Derek showed up at Rebecca's door at midnight, desperate, tried to use physical intimacy to manipulate, touched her face, reminded her of what they had. Rebecca stepped back, Emma between them like a shield. You taught me that intimacy without integrity is just manipulation. Consider that your final lesson. Have you ever watched someone who hurt you face consequences? Did it feel like justice or just hollow victory? Tell me in the comments what revenge really costs. The court date arrives. Derek's lawyers request emergency custody evaluation, claiming Rebecca is unstable and using their daughter as revenge pawn. Rebecca holds Emma tighter. They're trying to take the only thing that matters. Time to show them what a mother protecting her child really looks like. He thought she wanted his money, his company, his reputation. He was wrong. She wanted something he couldn't buy or steal, their daughter's future, free from his influence. The courtroom smelled of furniture polish and broken promises. Emma sat in her carrier beside Rebecca, occasionally cooing while lawyers argued over whose betrayal mattered more, his infidelity or her vindictive exposure. As if survival and revenge couldn't coexist, Derek's lawyer stood first. Expensive suit, practice delivery, confident smirk. Your Honor, Rebecca Harrington is using this child as a weapon. While her husband prepared for their daughter's birth, she was plotting his destruction. She coordinated with his business rivals. She manipulated timing to maximize damage. She's vindictive, unstable, and unfit. I have evidence to present, Jennifer said, standing. Rebecca's lawyer, her friend, her warrior. The judge nodded. Jennifer displayed Derek's text to Michelle. Baby, can't wait until she's gone. Messages sent while Rebecca was 8 months pregnant. Plans to serve divorce papers days after the birth. Asset transfers starting 18 months before Emma's conception. This wasn't revenge, Jennifer said. This was survival. Mr. Harrington spent 18 months planning to abandon his pregnant wife. Mrs. Harrington spent 4 days protecting herself and her child. Derek's lawyer shifted tactics. Your Honor, Rebecca Harrington has been cold and distant throughout their marriage. She refused intimacy, created emotional distance. You want to discuss intimacy? Rebecca stood, Emma in her arms. Let's discuss how your client scheduled affairs around my pregnancy complications. How he touched other women while his child grew inside me. How he divided his body, mine for obligation, theirs for pleasure. That's not intimacy. That's betrayal with a schedule. The courtroom went silent. Victoria testified next. Derek's pattern with women. How he'd used her, stolen from her, discarded her. How Rebecca was just the latest victim in a long line. Stephanie testified about Derek's manipulation, how he'd seduced her to secure funding, how he'd mixed business with personal advances, how he'd made promises he never intended to keep. Then Michelle took the stand, hands shaking. He told me Rebecca was a mistake from his past, Michelle said, voice breaking. That she trapped him with pregnancy, that I was his real future. He said the same things to Stephanie, probably said them to Rebecca once too. We weren't people to him. We were, her voice cracked. We were just tools. How much does a parent's character matter in custody battles? Should financial crimes affect custody rights? Share your perspective below. The judge called recess. In the hallway, Derek cornered Rebecca. You're destroying me. She adjusted Emma in her arms. No, I'm just removing your ability to destroy anyone else. There's a difference. When they returned to court, the judge's face told Rebecca everything before the words even came. She'd won. Victory tastes different than you expect. Less sweet triumph. More quiet acknowledgement that you survived something designed to break you. The settlement meeting took place in a downtown conference room with views of Elliott Bay, the same water Rebecca had stared at the day she received the manila envelope. 8 months had passed, 8 months that felt like lifetimes, collapses, rebirths. Judge's ruling. Primary custody to Rebecca. Supervised visitation for Derek. Asset division heavily in Rebecca's favor. The court recognized she'd been essential to the company's founding. Despite Derek's attempts to erase her contributions, Derek lost his CEO position. The board voted him out after Victoria's lawsuit proved intellectual property theft. The company was restructured under new leadership. Victoria received compensation for her stolen code, millions, plus a seat on the new board. Stephanie recovered her investment plus damages. The SEC investigation continued, but she was protected. Michelle was released from the apartment lease trap, given settlement money and immunity for testifying. Everyone got something, except Derek. Papers spread across the conference table, lawyers on both sides. Emma, now 6 months old, played with a rattle in Rebecca's lap, oblivious to the legal war being settled around her. Derek looked different, thinner, tired. The confident entrepreneur was gone, replaced by a man who'd lost everything and knew it. Final moment alone before signing papers. Derek reached for Rebecca's hand, not sexually, but with exhausted familiarity. Did you ever love me? He asked. Really? She pulled away slowly. I loved who you pretended to be. The man who needed me, valued me, saw me. But that man never existed. You just performed him until you got what you wanted. The death of their intimacy felt more final than any divorce paper. What about Emma? He asked. You can see her, be her father, but supervised visits until she's older, until we're sure you won't use her as leverage for something else. I wouldn't. You planned to abandon her mother while she was still inside me. I'm not taking chances. Papers signed, lawyers packed up. Derek left with visitation rights, damaged reputation, broken empire. Rebecca held Emma, watched him walk away. No triumph, no celebration, just the quiet settling after destruction. Is there ever real closure after betrayal? Or just acceptance that the person you loved never existed? Share what you learned from your own endings. 6 months later, Rebecca received another envelope. Her blood ran cold until she opened it. Victoria, Stephanie, and Michelle had started a foundation for women navigating divorce from powerful men. They wanted Rebecca to lead it. The return address made her smile. The Marina Building, Suite 2000. Derek's former office space, bought at bankruptcy auction. Sometimes the best revenge is occupying someone's former throne. She didn't just survive his attempt to erase her. She built something better on the ruins of everything he tried to destroy. The foundation headquarters occupied 3 floors of downtown Seattle prime real estate, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city Derek once dominated. Rebecca's office faced east toward sunrise. Meaningful, Victoria had said when choosing the space. Always looking toward new beginnings. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Emma was walking now, stumbling around the office while Rebecca worked. The foundation was helping 30 women navigate high-stakes divorces. Victoria served as COO of the restructured tech company, Derek's former empire, now run properly. Stephanie was funding women-owned startups. Michelle was back in school, business degree funded by foundation scholarship. They'd built something real from Derek's wreckage. Emma's first birthday party was held at the foundation headquarters. Clients came, women they'd helped, families they'd saved. Victoria, Stephanie, and Michelle were there. Rebecca's parents, old friends. Derek came too. Supervised visitation meant a court-appointed observer stood nearby while he held his daughter. He brought a gift, an expensive toy Emma immediately ignored in favor of the wrapping paper. He stood at the edges of the celebration, watching Rebecca laugh with the women who'd helped destroy him, watching his former office filled with people building what he'd only pretended to care about. Genuine community, authentic connection. 2 years post-divorce, Rebecca went on a date. Thomas, an environmental attorney she met through foundation work. He knew her history, saw her scars, valued her strength. Their intimacy was different, slower, more honest, built on respect instead of need. He touched her with curiosity, not ownership, kissed her with questions, not assumptions. When they made love, it was collaborative, not performative. You're not trying to fix me, she whispered after. Because you're not broken, he responded. You're rebuilt. There's a difference. Foundation Gala, 6 months later. Rebecca stood at the podium, Emma, now 2 years old, with her grandmother in the audience. Donors filled the ballroom, women they'd helped, media covering their success. I thought the worst day of my life was discovering my husband's betrayal while carrying his child, Rebecca said. But that day gave me a choice: be destroyed or be reconstructed. I chose reconstruction. This foundation exists because I'm not the first woman who made that choice, and I won't be the last. We're not victims building sympathy networks. We're survivors building power structures. There's a difference. The room erupted in applause. Derek wasn't there. His visitation was progressing, but supervised. Emma knew him as Daddy Who Visits, not as family. She had family: Rebecca, Victoria, Stephanie, Michelle, Thomas, the community of women they'd built together. So what would you have done? Would you have warned the other women? Would you have chosen revenge or simply survival? Would you have forgiven for your child's sake? Tell me in the comments what you would have done in Rebecca's situation. What part of her journey resonated most with you? If this story of betrayal, survival, and reconstruction moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe in women supporting women through impossible situations. Comment below with your own story of choosing reconstruction over destruction. Share this with someone who needs to know that the end of one story can be the beginning of something better. Remember, empires built on betrayal always crumble, but empires built on truth, those last forever. I'll see you in the next story, where we explore what happens when trust breaks and how we decide what to build from the pieces.